What happens when the only way to escape a nightmare is to run straight into danger? Lisa thought she'd left her past behind when she ended things with Ethan. But obsession doesn't die quietly. Tonight, she's running for her life through Chicago's dark streets, and the only refuge she finds is a black luxury sedan that belongs to the city's most feared man. One desperate choice, two dangerous men, and a collision that will change everything. This is a story about fear, freedom, and the thin line between protection and possession. Hello, fam. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Heartbeat Stories. If you're ready for a romance that will keep your heart racing, hit that subscribe button now, because you won't want to miss a single moment of this journey. Don't forget to drop a comment, telling us where you're watching from. Thank you for your immense support. Lisa's lungs burned as her feet pounded against the wet pavement. Rain had turned Chicago's downtown streets into mirrors reflecting neon signs and headlights, but she couldn't stop to appreciate the beauty or catch her breath. Behind her, she could hear him calling her name. "Lisa, stop running. We need to talk." Ethan's voice carried over the traffic noise, deceptively calm, almost gentle. That was the thing about him that terrified her most. He could sound so reasonable even when his eyes promised violence. She darted between two parked cars, nearly stumbling as her sneaker caught on the curb. Her delivery bag bounced against her hip, the insulated material doing nothing to cushion the impact. She'd been finishing her last order of the night when she spotted him outside her apartment building, leaning against his silver BMW, like he had every right to be there, like the restraining order she'd filed 3 weeks ago was just a suggestion. "Lisa, come on. I just want to talk." His voice was closer now. Her heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. She'd changed her address, her phone number, even switched to night shifts at the delivery company to avoid him. How had he found her? The light ahead turned red. Traffic stopped. Lisa saw her chance and ran into the street, weaving between stopped cars. Horns blared. Someone shouted. She didn't care. All that mattered was distance. "Excuse me. Sorry." She squeezed between a taxi and a truck, her bag catching on a side mirror. "Lisa, stop. You're going to get hurt." The concern in his voice would have sounded genuine to anyone else. But she'd heard that tone before, right before he'd grabbed her wrist so hard it bruised, right before he'd smashed her phone against the wall, right before he'd locked her in his apartment and told her it was for her own good. She reached the opposite sidewalk just as the light changed. Behind her, Ethan was stuck in traffic, but not for long. She could see him pushing between cars, his tall frame easily visible even in the crowd. Lisa ran harder. Her thighs burned. The cold October air cut into her throat with each gasping breath. She'd been in Chicago for 3 years, had thought she was building a new life, escaping the poverty and limited opportunities that had defined her existence in Accra. Instead, she'd found a different kind of prison. The street opened into a wider boulevard. Luxury cars lined both sides. She was in the financial district now, where buildings reached toward the sky like glass and steel giants. During the day, this area bustled with business people and tourists. At night, it became a canyon of shadows and empty sidewalks. "Lisa, please." She risked a glance back. Ethan had made it across the street. He was running now, his long legs eating up the distance between them. The streetlights caught his face, and even from here, she could see that expression, determination mixed with something darker, something possessive. Her eyes started frantically, searching for help, for witnesses, for anything. The sidewalks were empty. The few cars passing by were sealed worlds of their own. She was alone with her fear and the sound of his footsteps getting closer. Then she saw it, a black luxury sedan idling at the curb ahead, its engine purring softly. The windows were tinted, but through the windshield, she could make out a figure in the driver's seat. She didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider the consequences. Survival instinct took over. Lisa ran straight for the car, grabbed the rear door handle, and yanked it open. She threw herself inside, slamming the door behind her. Please, please just drive. There's a man chasing me. Please just go. The words tumbled out in a desperate rush as she locked the door with shaking fingers. The interior smelled of leather and something expensive, maybe cologne. The seats were butter-soft beneath her. She pressed herself into the corner, trying to make herself small. Please, I'm begging you, just be quiet. The voice came from the front passenger seat, not the driver's side. It was deep, measured, and carried an accent she couldn't quite place. Korean, maybe? Lisa's breath caught. Slowly, she turned her head. The man in the front seat was watching her in the rearview mirror. Even in the dim light, she could see his features. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, black hair styled perfectly despite the late hour. He wore a suit that probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. I said be quiet, he repeated, his tone unchanged. Not angry, not frightened, just absolute. Like someone accustomed to being obeyed. Outside, Ethan appeared. He ran up to the car, his face a mask of false concern. He knocked on the window next to Lisa. Lisa, what are you doing? Come out, let's talk about this rationally. She shrank further into the corner, shaking her head violently. No, please don't let him. Min-jae, the man in the front seat, said calmly. The driver's door opened. A younger man stepped out, also in a suit, also moving with that same controlled grace. He walked around to where Ethan stood and positioned himself between Ethan and the car. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back, Min-jae said, his voice polite but firm. Ethan's expression flickered, confusion breaking through his concerned facade. I'm sorry, who are you? That's my girlfriend in your car. There's been a misunderstanding. I'm not his girlfriend. Lisa shouted through the glass. I have a restraining order against him. The man in the front seat tilted his head slightly, still watching everything in the mirror. He hadn't moved otherwise, hadn't even unbuckled his seatbelt. Yet his presence filled the entire car. Sir, Min-jae said again, and this time there was steel beneath the politeness. Step back. Ethan straightened to his full height, trying to use his size to intimidate. Listen, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but that woman needs help. She's not well. I'm just trying to. You have 3 seconds to remove yourself from this vehicle's vicinity. Min-jae's hand moved to his jacket, and though Lisa couldn't see what he was reaching for, Ethan apparently could. His face went pale. This isn't over, Lisa. Ethan shouted toward the car. You can't keep running. We need to talk about us, about our future. There is no us. Lisa screamed back, tears streaming down her face. Leave me alone. Move. The man in the front seat finally spoke again, addressing the driver. Min-jae slid back into the driver's seat with practiced efficiency. The car pulled smoothly into traffic, leaving Ethan standing on the sidewalk. Through the rear window, Lisa watched him grow smaller, watched him pull out his phone, watched him start pacing in that way he did when he was angry, but trying to control it. Then they turned a corner and he was gone. Lisa collapsed against the seat, her body shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Adrenaline crash hit her like a wave. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps that she couldn't seem to control. Breathe slowly, the man said from the front. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're having a panic attack. I'm sorry, Lisa gasped. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, I just needed, he was going to. I said breathe. There was something in his voice, that same absolute quality, that cut through her panic. She focused on it, used it as an anchor. In through her nose, out through her mouth. Slowly, her breathing began to normalize. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lisa. Lisa Daniel. Korean or Japanese?" She blinked, confused. "What?" "Your last name." "Daniel." "I'm asking if you're Korean or Japanese." "Neither." "Ghanaian." It's a Christian name. Common in Ghana." "I see." He was silent for a moment. "And the man following you?" "My ex-boyfriend. Ethan Crowley." The name tasted like ash in her mouth. "I broke up with him 2 months ago. He won't accept it." "Has he hurt you?" The question was clinical, like a doctor asking about symptoms. But something in his tone suggested the answer mattered. "Not physically. Not yet. But he controlled everything. Who I talked to, where I went, what I wore. I thought he loved me, but it was never love. It was ownership. And the restraining order? 3 weeks ago. It hasn't stopped him. Tonight was the 3rd time I've seen him near my apartment." The man made a small sound, not quite disapproval, not quite acknowledgement. In the mirror, his eyes shifted to meet hers directly for the first time. They were dark, so dark she couldn't distinguish pupil from iris. And they were calculating, weighing, assessing. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked, suddenly aware that they'd been driving for several minutes and she had no idea where they were headed. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you'll get for now." Fear flickered through her again, different from the terror Ethan inspired, but fear nonetheless. "I appreciate you helping me, but I need to go home. I have work tomorrow and my roommate will worry if—" "Your home isn't safe," he interrupted. "He knows where you live." "You said so yourself." "Then I'll go to a hotel." "The police." "Anywhere but." "The police will take a report and tell you to be careful. A hotel is a temporary solution. He will find you again. Men like him always do." He paused. "Unless they're given a reason to stop." Something in those words sent a chill down Lisa's spine. "What kind of reason?" Instead of answering, he spoke to the driver. "Min-jae, take us to the safe house on Michigan Avenue." "Yes, Chairman." "Chairman?" Lisa's mind raced. What had she gotten herself into? She looked at the man more carefully now, taking in details she'd missed in her panic. The way he held himself, that absolute stillness of someone who'd never needed to fidget or self-soothe. The expensive watch on his wrist, probably worth more than her entire year's salary. The subtle bulge under Min-jae's jacket that suggested a weapon. "Who are you?" she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. The car glided through the city, taking turns that seemed random, but probably weren't. Finally, he spoke. "My name is Kong Ji-hwan. Most people call me Chairman K." He turned slightly in his seat to look at her directly, not through the mirror. "And I'm going to solve your problem, Miss Daniel. But first, you're going to follow my rules." The car pulled up to a building Lisa recognized vaguely. She'd delivered food to this area before. Luxury apartments, the kind where doormen wore uniforms and knew all the residents by name. Min-jae got out and opened her door before she could process what was happening. "This way," Ji-hwan said, already walking toward the entrance. Lisa hesitated, her hand still on the car door. Every instinct screamed that this was a mistake, that jumping into a stranger's car had simply traded one danger for another. But what was her alternative? Go back to her apartment where Ethan knew to find her? Sleep in the delivery company's break room? She had no family in Chicago, no close friends left after Ethan had systematically isolated her from everyone she'd met. "Miss Daniel," Ji-hwan's voice carried back to her, patient but expectant. "I won't ask twice." She got out of the car. The building's lobby was all marble and gold accents. The doorman nodded at Ji-hwan without a word, and the elevator required a key card to activate. They rode up in silence, Min-jae standing behind them like a shadow. Lisa watched the floor numbers climb. 15, 16, 17. They didn't stop until 28. The elevator opened directly into an apartment. Not a hallway with multiple doors, but straight into a living space that probably cost more per month than she'd made in the last year. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Art on the walls that might have been real, might have been worth actual fortunes. Sit, Ji-hwan said, gesturing to a pristine white sofa. Lisa sat, still clutching her delivery bag. She felt grimy in this space, her rain-soaked clothes dripping on what was probably Italian leather. Ji-hwan poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter. He handed her one before sitting across from her in a matching chair. Drink. I don't drink. Tonight you do. It will help with the shaking. She looked down at her hands. He was right. They still trembled. She took a small sip. Whiskey, smooth and expensive, burned down her throat. She coughed. Not used to it, she managed. I can tell. He took a sip from his own glass, his eyes never leaving her face. Now, tell me everything about Ethan Crowley. When you met, how the relationship developed, when it turned, every detail. Don't leave anything out. Why? Why do you care? Because men like him are predictable. To stop him, I need to understand him. And because you ran into my car, you became my responsibility. I don't take responsibilities lightly. There was something in his voice, that same absolute certainty, that made her believe him. She didn't know if that was a good thing or a terrible one. So she told him. Everything. About arriving in Chicago with dreams and a single suitcase. About working 3 jobs just to afford a shared room in a bad neighborhood. About meeting Ethan at the coffee shop where she'd worked mornings. How he'd seemed like a miracle, this handsome American man with a good job who was interested in her, who wanted to help her, who made her feel special. He paid off my student loans, she said, staring into her whiskey. 3 months into dating, he just did it. Said he wanted me to focus on building a future instead of drowning in debt. I thought he was the most generous man I'd ever met. And then, Ji-hwan prompted. Then he suggested I quit my morning job. Said he made enough for both of us. Then he didn't like my friends, said they were using me. Then he wanted to know where I was all the time. Then he started checking my phone. Her voice dropped. By the time I realized what was happening, I was completely dependent on him. Financially, socially, emotionally. He'd built a cage so slowly I didn't notice until the door was already locked. How did you escape? My roommate, Amma. She's Ghanaian too, and she saw what was happening. She helped me get a new place, fronted me the security deposit. I broke up with Ethan in a public place, gave him back his keys, told him it was over. Lisa's hands tightened around the glass. He smiled. Just smiled and said okay. I thought maybe I'd misjudged him, that he was going to let me go peacefully. But he didn't. 2 days later, I found a GPS tracker in my bag. A week after that, he showed up at my new apartment. He always had an explanation, always acted like running into me was a coincidence. But his eyes. She shuddered. His eyes said he owned me and always would. Ji-hwan set down his glass. Min-jae. The younger man appeared from somewhere in the apartment. He'd been so quiet Lisa had forgotten he was there. Look into Ethan Crowley. Employment, finances, associates, history. I want everything by tomorrow. Yes, Chairman. Min-jae disappeared again. What are you going to do? Lisa asked. That depends on what we find. Ji-hwan stood and walked to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back. For now, you'll stay here. Here? In this apartment. This is a safe house. One of several I maintain. No one knows about it except my inner circle. He can't find you here. I can't just stay here. I have a job, responsibilities. Which mean nothing if you're dead. The blunt words hit her like a slap. She stood, anger flaring. You don't know that he'd actually kill me. Ji-hwan turned to face her. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes made her step back. I know men like him better than you do. I know what obsession looks like, what it drives people to do. He's already escalated from emotional control to stalking to violating a restraining order. The next escalation is violence. It's not a question of if, Miss Daniel. It's when. The certainty in his voice drained the fight out of her. She sank back onto the sofa. So, what am I supposed to do? Hide forever. No. You stay here while I handle the situation. Handle it how? That's not your concern. It is if it's my life we're talking about. For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Ji-hwan's face. Amusement, maybe. You have spirit. That's good. You'll need it. He moved back to his chair. The rules are simple. You stay in this apartment. You don't leave for any reason. You don't contact anyone, not your roommate, not your job, no one. If you need something, you ask Min-jae or one of the other guards. Guards? I'm a prisoner then. You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. A prisoner wants to leave. You just want to be safe. I'm offering you that safety. His eyes held hers. But it comes at a price. My protection, my rules. Take it or leave it. Lisa wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself. But the memory of Ethan's face, of his hand reaching for the car door, of 3 months of looking over her shoulder made her swallow her pride. How long? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You know what's funny? 2 hours ago, I was just trying to deliver someone's dinner. Now I'm sitting in a stranger's apartment, drinking whiskey that probably costs more than my rent, agreeing to hide from my stalker ex-boyfriend while a man who calls himself chairman does God knows what to handle the situation. My life has become completely insane. Welcome to Chicago, Ji-hwan said dryly. He stood. Min-jae will show you to your room. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. We keep supplies for guests. Do you hide a lot of women from their stalkers? You'd be surprised what I do. He headed toward a hallway. Get some rest, Miss Daniel. Tomorrow we'll discuss details. Wait. Lisa stood too. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me. I jumped into your car and disrupted your evening. You could have just dropped me at a police station. Why go to all this trouble for a complete stranger? Ji-hwan paused in the doorway. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, without turning around, he spoke. Because I've seen what men like Ethan Crowley do when they're not stopped. I've seen the aftermath. The broken bodies, the destroyed lives. He did turn then, and his eyes were hard. And because in my world, there are rules. One of them is simple. You don't touch what's under my protection. The moment you entered my car, you came under that protection. Whether you like it or not. He left before she could respond. Min-jae appeared silently. This way, please. The bedroom was just as luxurious as the rest of the apartment. King-sized bed with white linens, an ensuite bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, a walk-in closet with clothes still bearing designer tags. Lisa stood in the middle of it all, feeling completely unmoored. Is there anything you need, Miss Daniel? Min-jae asked. My phone. It's in my bag. And could you make sure my roommate knows I'm okay? Just that I'm safe, nothing else. I'll have someone deliver a message. The phone stays off. He might be tracking it. He's already tracked everything else, Lisa muttered. After Min-jae left, Lisa showered, washing away the rain and fear and Ethan's voice still echoing in her head. She put on the pajamas from the closet, silk and soft and foreign against her skin. Everything in this place was foreign. The luxury, the security, the strange man who'd taken her fear seriously when everyone else had dismissed it. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened. This morning she'd woken up in her tiny shared apartment, made instant coffee, and complained about the early shift. Tonight she was in what was basically a fortress, under the protection of a man who was clearly dangerous, but had shown her more consideration than anyone else since this nightmare began. Sleep should have been impossible, but exhaustion won out, and she drifted off with one thought circling through her mind. Who exactly was Kang Ji-hwan, and what had she gotten herself into? The next morning, Lisa woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, bringing with it a spike of anxiety that made her chest tight. She found clothes laid out on the chair by the bed, jeans, a soft sweater, undergarments still in packaging. Everything in her size. That should have been comforting. Instead, it made her wonder how Ji-hwan had known her measurements so precisely. The apartment was quiet when she emerged. A woman she hadn't seen before was setting breakfast on the dining table. She was older, maybe 50s, with sharp eyes and sharper movements. "Good morning, Miss Daniel. I'm Madam Yura-han. I handle Chairman Kang's business affairs." She gestured to the table. "Please eat." Lisa sat, eyeing the spread, rice, soup, grilled fish, side dishes she didn't recognize. Korean breakfast, she realized. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. This is my job." Yura poured tea with precise movements. "I understand you had an eventful evening." "You could say that." "I reviewed the preliminary report on Ethan Crowley this morning. Concerning man. History of restraining orders from 2 previous relationships." Lisa's stomach dropped. 2. One in college, 1 3 years ago. Both women eventually dropped the charges. "I wonder why." Yura's tone suggested she knew exactly why. "He told me I was his first serious relationship," Lisa whispered. "He said he'd been waiting for the right person. Men like him always say that. They're predators, Miss Daniel. They hunt, they consume, they move on. The only difference is how much damage they do in the process." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what you're dealing with. And because I want you to understand something else." Yura set down the teapot and fixed Lisa with a stare that could cut glass. "Chairman Kang is many things, but he's not a charity. He's protecting you now, but protection in our world comes with expectations." "What kind of expectations?" "Loyalty, discretion, obedience to his rules." Yura leaned forward slightly. "He's putting resources into your safety. Resources that could be directed elsewhere. That means you're now an investment. I'm here to make sure you understand that investments are expected to provide returns." "Returns? I don't have money. I can't pay him back for." "Not financial returns, girl. Information. Cooperation. Perhaps eventually work." Yura straightened. "But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, just remember, nothing is free. Especially not protection from a man like Chairman Kang." Before Lisa could respond, Ji-hwan entered from the hallway. He'd clearly been awake for hours, dressed in a different suit, perfectly pressed, not a hair out of place despite it being barely 8 a.m. "Yura, I told you to prepare breakfast, not interrogate our guest." "I was simply setting expectations, Chairman." "Out." Yura left without another word, but Lisa saw the woman's knowing smile as she passed Ji-hwan. "I apologize for her," Ji-hwan said, sitting across from Lisa. "She's protective of me and suspicious of everyone." "Should I be worried about what she said?" "About returns and investments. Yura sees everything as a transaction. I see things differently." He poured himself tea. "You're not an investment, Miss Daniel. You're a person in need of help. Nothing more complicated than that. Nothing in this world is that simple." She's right about that much. "Eat. You'll feel better." Lisa picked at the food. It was delicious, but her stomach was in knots. Did Minjae find out more about Ethan? He did. Your ex-boyfriend is a financial analyst at Morrison and Schmidt. Makes good money, has connections, comes from a family with influence. On paper, he's perfect. Charitable donations, community involvement, not even a parking ticket. But 2 women have restraining orders on record. Both were settled quietly, money changed hands. The law firm representing Ethan in both cases is known for making problems disappear. Ji-hwan's expression hardened. And there's a third woman, Emily Torres. She had a restraining order against him 4 years ago. She withdrew it. Then she moved to Portland. According to her social media, she hasn't posted anything personal in 3 years. No photos, no mentions of relationships, no location tags. She's hiding. Lisa set down her chopsticks, her appetite completely gone. 3 of us. 3 women he's done this to. That we know of. There could be more who never filed reports. Why does he do this? What makes someone so obsessed with controlling others? Does it matter? Ji-hwan asked. Understanding him won't stop him. Only action will. What kind of action? The kind that makes it very clear you're no longer available for him to target. Something in his tone made Lisa's skin prickle. You keep saying that, but you won't tell me what you mean. Are you going to hurt him? Kill him? Because I didn't escape one form of violence just to enable another. Ji-hwan was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to the windows, the same position he'd taken last night. I was born in Seoul. Did I mention that? My father ran a small business, legitimate, honest work. He tried to do everything right, follow every rule. Then men came demanding protection money. He refused. They burned his business down. He rebuilt. They came again. This time, they didn't just burn the business. They made sure he couldn't rebuild. Ever. Lisa watched his back, saw the tension in his shoulders. I learned something from that, he continued. Rules only work when everyone follows them. But there are people in this world who see rules as suggestions, who take kindness as weakness, who only understand one language, power. So I learned to speak that language fluently. I came to America, built something from nothing, and I protect what's mine with absolute certainty. Not with hope, not with good intentions, but with the reality that crossing me has consequences. He turned to face her. So yes, Miss Daniel, I will use power to stop Ethan Crowley. But I don't need to hurt him. I just need to make him understand that continuing down this path will cost him everything he values. His job, his reputation, his freedom. The choice to stop will be his. I'm simply making sure he understands what his options really are. That's still, it's intimidation. Coercion. Yes. How is that different from what he did to me? Because I'm doing it to protect someone, not possess them. Because when this is over, you'll walk away free. And because unlike him, I'll stop the moment you ask me to. His eyes held hers. So I'm asking now, do you want me to stop? Do you want me to take you to the police station, file a report, hope the system works this time? Or do you want me to make sure he never bothers you again? Lisa thought about Ethan's face last night, about the 2 other women with restraining orders, about Emily Torres hiding in Portland. She thought about her own fear, about not wanting to spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. I want to be free, she whispered. Really free. Not just hiding, not just hoping he gets bored and moves on. Then trust me. I don't even know you. No. But I've kept my word so far, haven't I? You're safe here. No one's touched you. No one's forced you to do anything. I've given you space and protection and food and clothes. What has your trust earned you so far? He wasn't wrong. Against all logic, he'd done exactly what he said he would. Okay, Lisa said finally. Do what you need to do. Just don't tell me the details. I don't want to know. Fair enough. Ji-hwan returned to his seat. Now While I handle Ethan, you'll stay here. Min-jae will be in the apartment at all times. 2 other guards will be posted outside. You need anything you ask. Understood. What about my job? My roommate. I'll have your roommate told you're safe, but can't be contacted right now. As for your job. He paused. I'm afraid you'll need to quit. What? No. I need that income I need. You need to disappear from Ethan's radar completely. That means no connection to your old life until he's dealt with. He raised a hand before she could protest. I'll compensate you for lost wages. Double what you would have made. Consider it payment for the inconvenience. I don't want your money. Then consider it payment for the information you've given me about Ethan, which has been valuable. Or consider it rent for staying here. I don't care how you justify it, but you're not going to work while you're under threat. That's non-negotiable. Lisa wanted to argue, but what was the point? He was right. Going back to her delivery job would just lead Ethan straight to her. And pride wouldn't protect her from a stalker. Fine, she said quietly. I'll stay. I'll follow your rules. But when this is over, I want my life back. My real life. Not hidden in a luxury apartment. Not depending on someone else's protection. My own life. That's the goal, Miss Daniel. I promise you that. Something in his voice made her believe him again. Maybe that was dangerous. Maybe she was just trading one form of dependence for another. But for the first time in months, she felt like someone was actually doing something about Ethan instead of just telling her to be careful. The days that followed took on a strange rhythm. Mornings, Lisa would wake to find breakfast already prepared. She'd eat alone or sometimes with Min-jae, who was quiet but not unkind. Afternoons, she'd read from the extensive library in the apartment or watch the city from the windows. Evenings, if Ji-hwan was there, they'd talk. Those conversations were the strangest part. Ji-hwan would ask about her life, her dreams, what she wanted for her future. She'd ask about his work, dancing around what he actually did because she wasn't sure she wanted to know. They talked about Ghana, about Korea, about the immigrant experience of never quite belonging anywhere. He was surprisingly easy to talk to when he wasn't being imperious. Why did you come to Chicago? She asked one evening. They were in the living room, her curled up on the sofa with tea, him in his usual chair with whiskey. Opportunity, he said simply. Korea was complicated. I needed a fresh start. Running from something? Walking toward something. There's a difference. Is there? He smiled, just slightly. You like throwing my words back at me. You like being cryptic. Comes with the territory. And what territory is that exactly? Instead of answering, he asked, what did you dream of when you were young? Before life got complicated. Lisa thought back to her childhood in Accra. I wanted to be a teacher. Not in Ghana where resources are scarce and classes are overcrowded, but somewhere I could really make a difference. Help kids who felt lost like I did. Give them options I never had. She smiled sadly. Seems silly now. Why silly? Because I'm hiding in an apartment, dependent on a stranger's protection, barely surviving. Not exactly Teacher of the Year material. You're surviving a situation that would break most people, Ji-hwan said quietly. That takes strength. And this isn't your final chapter, Lisa. It's just a difficult scene. It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his accented English did something strange to her chest. What about you? She asked. What did you dream of? Safety. Control. Power enough to make sure no one could hurt my family again. And did you get it? I got the power. The rest. He swirled his drink. Family is complicated. Are they still in Korea? My mother is. My father died when I was 17. My sister. He paused, something flickering across his face. My sister doesn't speak to me anymore. She didn't approve of my choices. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was right not to approve. He met her eyes. I'm not a good man, Lisa. I've done things that would horrify you. but I follow my own code and I keep my word. Remember that. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know who's protecting you. What kind of man he is. And what kind is that? The kind who gets things done. Whatever the cost. Something in his tone sent a shiver through her, but it wasn't fear. It was something more complicated, something that scared her in a different way. The next evening, Ji-hwan came home looking satisfied in a way that set Lisa's nerves on edge. She was in the kitchen, making tea under Min-jae's watchful eye when he arrived. "Good news," Ji-hwan said, setting down his briefcase. Ethan Crowley is currently being questioned by his superiors at Morrison and Schmidt about certain irregularities in client accounts. Lisa's hand stilled on the kettle. What irregularities? The kind that suggest he's been skimming money. Small amounts, hard to trace, but once someone starts looking. Ji-hwan shrugged. Of course, I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. But these things take time to investigate. Months, possibly. His access to company resources has been suspended pending the investigation. You framed him. I simply made sure certain information reached the right people. He loosened his tie. Ethan Crowley built his life on being perfect, being above reproach. That perfection is now in question. His firm is pulling back from him. His father, a prominent judge, is reportedly furious. The foundation of his carefully constructed world is cracking. That doesn't stop him from coming after me. Actually, it does. Because along with the investigation, he received a visit from some associates of mine. They made it clear that any further contact with you would result in the full evidence of his financial crimes being handed to the FBI. Real crimes, Lisa. Not the frame job at his firm. We found accounts, offshore holdings, tax evasion. He's been stealing for years. Lisa set down the kettle before she could drop it. So he'll stop? Just like that. Men like Ethan are fundamentally cowards. They target women they perceive as weak because they can't handle actual resistance. The moment resistance becomes costly, they back down. Ji-hwan poured himself a drink. He's currently more worried about prison than he is about you. I'd say that's a successful redirection of his obsession. But what if he doesn't care? What if he comes after me anyway? Then he goes to prison. And I've made sure he knows that. The choice is his: leave you alone and maybe recover his reputation, or continue stalking you and lose everything. I'm betting on his self-preservation instinct. Lisa wanted to feel relieved. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? For Ethan to leave her alone? But instead, she felt strangely hollow. What's wrong? Ji-hwan asked, studying her face. I don't know. I thought I'd feel different. Free. But I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been running on fear and adrenaline for months. Now that the immediate threat is reduced, you're crashing. It will pass. How do you know? Experience. He didn't elaborate. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. Ethan was being handled. She should be grateful, relieved. Instead, she felt unmoored, like she'd been so focused on surviving the storm that she'd forgotten what calm felt like. Around 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went to the living room. She was surprised to find Ji-hwan there, standing at the windows like always, a drink in his hand. Can't sleep, he asked without turning around. How did you know I was here? I heard your door open. I'm a light sleeper. Lisa moved to stand beside him at the windows. The city sprawled below them, thousands of lights in the darkness. Do you ever sleep? Sometimes. When I can afford to. What does that mean? It means that in my world, letting your guard down can be fatal. She glanced at him, really looked at him. He seemed tired suddenly, his perfect facade showing hairline cracks. That sounds exhausting. It is. They stood in silence for a moment. Lisa found herself acutely aware of how close they were standing, how the sleeve of his shirt was inches from her bare arm. She was in pajamas, silk things from the closet that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe back home. He was in slacks and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, tie discarded somewhere. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything you've done. I never properly thanked you. You don't need to thank me for doing what's right." Is that what this is? Doing what's right. It's what I'm choosing to believe anyway. He finally turned to look at her. "You should go back to bed. Tomorrow we'll discuss your next steps." "What next steps?" "Well, you can't live here forever. Eventually, you'll need to rebuild your life. New job, new place, new start. I'll help with that when you're ready." The thought of leaving this apartment, this strange bubble of safety, filled her with unexpected dread. What if I'm not ready? Then you stay until you are. There's no rush. His eyes searched her face. "But Lisa, you need to understand something. This apartment, this protection, it's temporary. I can keep you safe, but I can't give you back your life. Only you can do that." "I know that. She struggled for words. "I've been dependent on someone else for so long. First Ethan, now you. I don't even know how to be independent anymore." "Yes, you do. You left everything you knew to come to America. You worked 3 jobs to survive. You left Ethan when you realized what he was, even though you were dependent on him. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm barely holding together." Strength isn't about never breaking, Lisa. It's about breaking and still choosing to keep going. Something in his voice made her look up at him. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It wasn't pity. It wasn't desire. It was something more complicated. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "Really? You could have just dropped me at a police station that first night. Why go to all this trouble for a stranger?" Ji-hwan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because someone should have done the same for my sister. Before it was too late." "What happened to her?" "She fell in love with the wrong man. Someone charming and controlling and dangerous. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd isolated her completely. I tried to help, but I was young and stupid and I went about it the wrong way. Violently. It drove her away from me instead of from him." He took a sip of his drink. "She stayed with him for 3 more years. By the time she finally left, she wasn't the person I remembered. The light in her had gone out." "Did you ever reconnect with her?" "No. She blames me for making things worse." "Maybe she's right." He turned back to the window. "So when I see someone in a similar situation, someone who still has fight left in them, I can't just walk away. Maybe I'm trying to save my sister retroactively. Maybe I'm just trying to prove I've learned something. Either way, here we are." Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sorry. About your sister. About what she went through. Don't be sorry. Just promise me you won't let what Ethan did define you. You're more than what happened to you. Are you?" He smiled, sad and knowing. "That's the question, isn't it?" They stood there in the darkness, 2 people shaped by damage, trying to figure out how to be whole again. The distance between them felt both vast and negligible, like one small movement could bridge it or widen it forever. "I should go to bed," Lisa finally said, though she didn't move. "You should." Neither of them moved. Then Ji-hwan's phone buzzed. The spell broke. He checked it, frowned. "I need to make a call. Go get some rest, Lisa." She went back to her room, but sleep still didn't come. She lay in bed, thinking about what he'd told her about his sister, about the sadness in his eyes, about how complicated he was becoming in her mind. He wasn't just her protector anymore. He was becoming a person with his own pain, his own history, his own reasons for being the way he was. That should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified her. The next few days were different. Ji-hwan was around more, his presence a constant in the apartment. They fell into an easy routine, breakfast together, where they'd talk about nothing important. Afternoons where he'd work in the study while she read in the living room. Evenings where they'd share dinner and conversation that grew increasingly personal. "Tell me about Ghana," he said one night. "What do you miss most?" "The sounds," Lisa said without hesitation. "The chaos of Accra. Vendors shouting, TRO honking, music from every corner. It was overwhelming, but it was alive, you know? Chicago is so ordered by comparison. So quiet. You could go back. Visit at least. Maybe. Someday. When I've made something of myself. I left with so many promises to my mother, to myself. I can't go back empty-handed." "You're not empty-handed. You survived. That counts for something. Does it? More than you know." He refilled her wine glass. They'd started having wine with dinner, a ritual that felt intimate and dangerous. "What would you do if money wasn't an issue?" "If you could do anything, I'd go back to school. Finish my teaching degree. Work with immigrant kids, help them navigate everything I struggled with." She smiled. "What about you? If you could do anything, I'd probably do exactly what I'm doing now." "Really? Running a criminal empire is your dream job." "Criminal empire is a bit dramatic." But he smiled. "I like order. Control. Building systems that work. That's what I do, just in unconventional ways." "You mean illegal ways?" "The line between legal and illegal is thinner than you think. Lawyers find loopholes, accountants hide money, politicians make backroom deals. I just do it without pretending it's something else." That's a convenient rationalization. Maybe. Or maybe it's just honest. He leaned back in his chair. "I don't pretend to be a good man, Lisa. I've never asked you to approve of what I do. But I keep my word, I protect people under my care, and I follow my own code. That's more than most people can say." "What's your code?" "Loyalty above all. Never harm the innocent. Keep your word. And never, ever underestimate your enemies." "Sounds lonely." "It is." He met her eyes. "But necessary." Lisa found herself wanting to argue, to tell him that loneliness wasn't necessary, that he could choose something different. But who was she to give advice? Her own choices had led her to hiding in his apartment, dependent on his protection. "What happens when this is over?" she asked instead. "When I leave here and rebuild my life? Do we just never see each other again?" The question surprised her as much as it seemed to surprise him. Why did the thought of never seeing him again make her chest tight? "I don't know," Ji-hwan said quietly. "What would you want to happen?" "I don't know either." The air between them felt charged suddenly. Lisa became acutely aware of everything, the way the candlelight reflected in his dark eyes, the way his fingers drummed lightly against his wine glass, the way he was looking at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "This is complicated," she said. "Yes. I should keep my distance." "You're dangerous." "Yes. And I'm vulnerable right now. Dependent. This isn't real. Isn't it?" The question hung between them. Lisa stood abruptly. "I need to clear my head." She walked to the windows, putting distance between them. Behind her, she heard Ji-hwan stand, heard his footsteps approach. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, but not touching. Lisa. Just her name, spoken in that accented English that did things to her heartbeat. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "Probably. I don't even know what this is." "Neither do I." She turned to face him. He was closer than she'd thought, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. They were dark and intense and utterly focused on her. "I don't want to be another thing you protect," she said. "Another responsibility. Another broken thing you're trying to fix. You're not broken. And you're not a thing." His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "May I?" The question startled her. After months of Ethan taking without asking, the simple request for permission nearly undid her. She nodded, not trusting her voice. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle as a whisper. I don't know what this is either, he said softly. But I know it's not obligation. It's not pity. And it's definitely not because I think you need fixing. Then what is it? I think. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I think I like who I am when I'm with you. I think you see past the reputation and the power to something I'd almost forgotten was there. And I think if I'm not careful, I'm going to fall for you completely. Lisa's breath caught. That's not a good idea. No, it's a terrible idea. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But I've made a career out of calculated risks. Maybe it's time for an uncalculated one. Ji-hwan, tell me to stop. Tell me this crosses a line and I'll step back. I'll keep protecting you, I'll help you rebuild your life, and I'll never bring this up again. Your choice, Lisa. Always your choice. That was the difference, she realized. With Ethan, nothing had been her choice. He'd moved her like a chess piece, always claiming it was for her own good. But Ji-hwan was standing there, his hand gentle on her face, giving her the power to say no, trusting her to know her own mind. Instead of answering, she stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like they were both testing the waters. Then his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened. He tasted like wine and something else, something uniquely him. His other hand cupped the back of her head, fingers threading through her hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lisa rested her forehead against his chest. This is crazy, she whispered. Yes. I'm still technically in hiding from my stalker ex-boyfriend. Yes. And you're whatever you are. Which is definitely dangerous and probably illegal. Definitely illegal, he confirmed, and she could hear the smile in his voice. So this is a bad idea. The worst. We should stop. We should. Neither of them moved. Lisa, Ji-hwan said finally, his voice rough. I need you to be sure. This changes things between us. I can't protect you objectively if I'm emotionally involved. It could put you at risk. She pulled back enough to look up at him. I'm already at risk. I have been since the moment I jumped into your car. At least this risk is one I'm choosing. Something in his expression softened. Then choose carefully. Because once I let myself care about you, I won't be able to stop. That's not a threat or a promise, just a fact about who I am. I know who you are. You're the man who took a stranger's fear seriously when no one else did. Who gave me safety without demanding anything in return. Who told me I was strong when I felt weak. She touched his face. And yes, you're dangerous and controlling and probably have done terrible things. But you've never been those things to me. You've been kind. Kind, he repeated, like the word was foreign. No one's called me kind in a very long time. Maybe they should start. He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the moment. When they finally pulled apart, he led her to the couch, pulled her down beside him, and just held her. Not demanding, not taking, just holding. This doesn't solve your Ethan problem, he said eventually. Or the fact that you're still under protection. Those things are still real. I know. And when this is over, you might decide you want nothing to do with me or my world. That's okay too. I won't stop you from leaving. You promise. I promise. Your freedom matters more than my feelings. Always. They sat there in the darkness, wrapped in each other, two broken people trying to build something whole. The next morning, Yura-han took one look at them and knew immediately. She cornered Lisa in the kitchen while Ji-hwan was on a phone call. This is a mistake, she said bluntly. You and the chairman. That's not your business. Everything involving him is my business. I've worked for him for 8 years, watched him build this organization from nothing. I won't let him risk it for a woman he barely knows. He's not risking anything. And you don't know me well enough to judge. I know your type. Damaged, vulnerable, looking for someone to save you. He has a weakness for broken things. It clouds his judgment. I'm not broken. And I'm not looking to be saved. I'm looking to save myself. Lisa faced Yura fully. I understand you're protective of him. That's admirable. But this is between Ji-hwan and me, not you. Until it becomes a liability. Until you become leverage for his enemies. Yura stepped closer. Do you even understand what his life is like? The danger? The violence? The impossible choices? No. But I'm learning. Learning isn't enough. This world chews up people like you and spits them out. I've seen it happen. Good people, innocent people, destroyed because they got too close to men like him. Then warn him. Tell him I'm dangerous for him. But stop treating me like I'm some helpless child who doesn't know her own mind. Lisa's voice hardened. I've survived a stalker, survived months of psychological abuse, survived crossing an ocean to build a new life. I'm stronger than you think. Stronger than he thinks. Certainly stronger than you give me credit for. Yura studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Maybe you are. Maybe you'll surprise me. She turned to leave, then paused. But understand this. If you hurt him, if you betray him, if you become a threat to what he's built, I will end you without hesitation. Chairman's orders or not. Understood. After Yura left, Lisa's hands shook slightly as she poured coffee. She'd stood up to Yura, shown strength she hadn't known she possessed. But the woman's words haunted her. Was she putting Ji-hwan at risk? Was this selfish, falling for him when she was still so fragile? You stood up to Yura. Lisa jumped. Ji-hwan was leaning against the doorframe, watching her with an expression that might have been pride. You heard that. Every word. These walls aren't as thick as they look. He moved into the kitchen, took the coffee pot from her trembling hands, and poured for both of them. She's not wrong, you know. About the danger. About you potentially becoming leverage. I know. But she's wrong about you being broken. About you being weak. He handed her a mug. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You just don't see it yet. I'm scared, Lisa admitted. Of Ethan, of this, of everything. How is that strong? Because being scared and doing it anyway is the definition of courage. He touched her face gently. And for what it's worth, I think we're both taking a risk here. You might hurt me just as easily as I might hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you either. So we'll be careful with each other. Deal? Deal. That afternoon, Min-jae brought news. Ethan had been placed on administrative leave from his firm. The investigation was expanding. And according to surveillance, he'd spent the last 2 days at home, not searching for Lisa, not stalking her old haunts. Just home, probably panicking about his imploding life. It's working, Ji-hwan said, reviewing the reports. He's retreating. Focusing on survival instead of obsession. How long until I can go home? Lisa asked. Another week, maybe 2. I want to be absolutely certain he's not going to rebound and refocus on you. These things can be unpredictable. And then we find you a new apartment in a building with good security. I'll have one of my people check on you periodically, just to be safe. But you'll be free to rebuild your life. Free. The word should have excited her. Instead, it made her anxious. Free meant leaving this apartment. Leaving Ji-hwan. Going back to the real world where he was a crime boss and she was, what? What was she now? What if I don't want to leave? She asked quietly. Ji-hwan looked up from the reports. Lisa. I know. This is temporary. I need to rebuild my independence. But what if? She struggled for words. What if I want to see where this goes? With us. Then we figure it out. But not while you're still under protection. Not while there's still a power imbalance. He set down the papers. When you leave here, it needs to be a real choice. Not because you're grateful, not because you feel safe here, but because you want to. And if I still want to then Then we'll take it one day at a time. See if this thing between us is real or just circumstance. It feels real. It does, he agreed. But feelings can be deceptive. Let's make sure before we commit to anything. Lisa wanted to argue, wanted to insist she knew her own mind. But maybe he was right. Maybe she needed to rebuild her life, stand on her own 2 feet, before she could truly know what she wanted. The days continued their strange rhythm. By day, Lisa planned her next steps with Ji-hwan's help. He connected her with a therapist who specialized in domestic violence survivors. He helped her look at apartments in safe neighborhoods. He even reached out to his contacts about job opportunities that matched her skills. By night, they grew closer. Not physically, Ji-hwan maintained careful boundaries, never pushing for more than she offered. But emotionally, intellectually, they became intertwined. She learned about his childhood in Seoul, about the violence that had shaped him, about the empire he'd built through calculation and ruthlessness. He learned about her dreams, her fears, the girl she'd been in Ghana, and the woman she was trying to become. "I want to teach again," she told him one night. "Not just work a minimum wage job to survive. I want to finish my degree, get certified, make a real difference." "Then do it. I can help with tuition." "No. No more help. I need to do this myself. Pride won't pay your bills, Lisa. Neither will dependency. I spent too long letting Ethan control my finances. I won't do that again, even with someone who has good intentions." "Fair enough." He thought for a moment. What if it wasn't help? What if it was a scholarship? "I fund several. One more wouldn't make a difference to my budget. That's still you paying for me. It's me investing in someone's education. That's different. And if you hate owing me, you can pay it back someday." When you're a successful teacher making a difference, you can donate to the scholarship fund and help someone else. Lisa considered it. Framed that way, it wasn't charity. It was investment with expected returns, just not financial ones. "I'd have to think about it." "Take your time. The offer stands." That night, she lay in bed thinking about the future. About going back to school, about teaching, about building the life she dreamed of when she first came to America. About whether Ji-hwan fit into that dream, or if he was just a beautiful detour. 2 weeks after the night she'd run into his car, Ethan Crowley was arrested. Not for stalking Lisa, but for embezzlement and fraud. The investigation that Ji-hwan had initiated had uncovered real crimes, real evidence. He'd be going to prison for a long time. "It's over," Ji-hwan told her when the news broke. "He can't hurt you anymore." Lisa should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt numb. What happens to him now? Trial, probably a plea deal, prison time. 5 to 10 years if his lawyers are good. More if they're not. Ji-hwan watched her carefully. "How do you feel?" "I don't know. I thought I'd feel relieved, but I just feel tired. Like I spent so much energy being afraid that now I don't know what to do with myself." "That's normal. Trauma doesn't end just because the threat does. That's why you're seeing a therapist." "How do you know so much about trauma?" "Experience. Personal and professional." He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. That night, they stood at the windows together, watching the city lights. It had become their spot, where important conversations happened. "I found an apartment," Lisa said. 2-bedroom, good neighborhood, security system. "I can move in next week." "That's good. The scholarship came through. I can start classes in the spring semester." "I'm glad. And I got a job offer. Teaching assistant position at a community center. It's not much, but it's a start. You're rebuilding your life. That's what matters." They were quiet for a moment. Then Lisa said, "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of leaving here. Of losing this. Of finding out that what we have only existed because of the circumstances." Ji-hwan turned to face her fully. "Lisa, what we have is real. But you need to prove that to yourself. You need to stand on your own, Rebuild your confidence. Remember who you are outside of fear and dependency. Then, if you still want this, if you still want me, we'll figure it out. What if I don't want to wait? What if I want to jump in right now? Then you'd be making the same mistake you made with Ethan. Trading one form of dependency for another, even if this one is healthier. You need to be whole on your own before you can be whole with someone else. When did you become so wise? When I made enough mistakes to learn from them. He touched her face. I'll wait, Lisa. However long it takes. And if you decide that being with me isn't what you want after all, I'll accept that too. Your happiness matters more than mine. That's not true. It is for me. Moving day arrived too quickly. Lisa packed her few belongings, mostly the clothes from Ji-hwan's apartment, along with some personal items Min-jae had retrieved from her old place. The apartment felt empty despite all its luxury. Ji-hwan drove her to her new place himself, Min-jae following in another car with her boxes. The apartment was modest compared to where she'd been staying, but it was hers. Her name on the lease, her furniture choices, her space. Security system is installed, Ji-hwan said, doing a final check. The building has cameras and a doorman. Min-jae's number is programmed into your phone. If you need anything at all, you call. I will. I mean it, Lisa. Just because you're rebuilding your independence doesn't mean you have to do it alone. I know. They stood in her empty living room, both aware this was a goodbye of sorts. Not permanent, maybe, but a closing of one chapter before another could begin. Thank you, Lisa said. For everything. For believing me, for protecting me, for helping me remember I was strong. You never forgot. You just needed permission to remember. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. Be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. Some days will be harder than others. Will I see you? When you're ready. When you've had time to build your own life. When you're certain about what you want. How will I know when I'm ready? You'll know. He kissed her forehead and left before she could say anything else. Lisa stood in her empty apartment, listening to his footsteps fade, and cried. Not from sadness, exactly. From relief and grief and hope all mixed together. The next few months were hard. Harder than she'd expected. Without the immediate threat of Ethan, without the safety of Ji-hwan's apartment, she had to face everything she'd been running from. The loneliness, the fear, the damage that months of abuse had done to her sense of self. Therapy helped. Her therapist, Dr. Morrison, was patient and insightful. She helped Lisa understand that what Ethan had done wasn't love, wasn't her fault, wasn't something she should have seen coming. Abuse was subtle until it wasn't. You're grieving, Dr. Morrison said in one session. Not for Ethan, but for the version of yourself that existed before him. That's normal. Will I ever get her back? No, but you'll find a new version. Stronger, wiser, more careful, but not broken. Different isn't bad, Lisa. School started. Lisa threw herself into her classes, rediscovering her love of learning, of teaching. The teaching assistant position was fulfilling in ways she hadn't anticipated. Working with immigrant kids, helping them navigate language barriers and cultural confusion, she found purpose. She reconnected with her roommate, Amma, carefully rebuilding that friendship. She made new friends in her classes, joined a study group, started living again instead of just surviving. And she thought about Ji-hwan. A lot. She thought about his quiet strength, his unexpected gentleness, the way he'd given her space to heal. She'd see something funny and want to tell him. She'd face a challenge and wish for his steady presence. But she didn't call. Not yet. She'd promised herself she would wait until she was whole, until she knew who she was outside of fear and protection. She needed to prove to herself that she could stand alone. 6 months after moving out, Lisa was finishing a paper in her apartment when her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart jumped, old trauma responses died hard. but she'd been working on this with Dr. Morrison. Not every unknown number was Ethan. She answered. Hello, Lisa. It's Yurahan. That was unexpected. Oh, hi. Is everything okay? Is Ji-hwan? The chairman is fine. I'm calling because I owe you an apology. What? I was wrong about you. I thought you were weak, looking for someone to save you. But you proved me wrong. You left when you could have stayed comfortable. You rebuilt your life instead of hiding in his protection. That takes strength I didn't think you had. Thank you. I think. I'm not good at apologies. What I'm trying to say is this. He's miserable without you. Won't admit it, of course. But I've known him too long not to see it. So if you're going to break his heart, do it soon. And if you're not, stop making him wait. I'm not trying to hurt him. I just needed to be sure. To be ready. Are you? Sure and ready. Lisa thought about the last 6 months. About the life she'd built, the person she'd become. About the fact that through all of it, through the hard days and the breakthroughs and the setbacks, she'd thought about Ji-hwan. Had wanted to share her victories with him, wanted his support through failures. Had missed him with an ache that never quite faded. Yes, she said. I think I am. Then call him. Tonight. Before I change my mind about you. Yura hung up before Lisa could respond. Lisa stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she pulled up Ji-hwan's number. She'd never deleted it, and hit call before she could overthink it. He answered on the second ring. Lisa. Just her name, but she could hear everything in it. Relief. Hope. Restraint. Hi, she said, suddenly nervous. Is this a good time? For you? Always. I was thinking, maybe we could meet for coffee? If you're free? If you still want to. When? Tomorrow. I'll cancel whatever I have scheduled. Where? They agreed on a place, a quiet cafe in a neighborhood that was neutral territory. After they hung up, Lisa sat holding her phone, her heart racing. This was it. The moment she'd been working toward, the test of whether what they had was real or just circumstance. She barely slept that night. The cafe was crowded but not loud. Lisa arrived first, claimed a table in the corner, ordered tea she didn't drink. When Ji-hwan walked in, her breath caught. She'd forgotten how he commanded space, how every eye turned to track him even when he wasn't doing anything remarkable. He was in a suit, of course, looking like he'd stepped out of a boardroom. But his eyes, when they found hers, softened in a way she remembered. He sat across from her, ordered coffee he probably wouldn't drink either. You look good, he said. Healthy. Strong. I feel good. Most days. She twisted her cup in her hands. Thank you for coming. I told you I'd wait. I meant it. I know. That's part of why I called. She took a breath. These last 6 months have been hard. Harder than I expected. But I needed them. I needed to prove to myself that I could stand on my own, that I didn't need someone else to feel safe or whole. And did you? Prove it. Yes. I have my own apartment, my own life, my own goals. I'm going to finish my degree, get certified, teach. I know who I am now, outside of fear and trauma and dependency. That's good, Lisa. I'm proud of you. But here's the thing. She finally met his eyes directly. Through all of it, through every milestone and setback, I thought about you. I wanted to call you 100 times. When I aced my first exam, when I had a panic attack in the grocery store, when I helped a student break through on a concept they'd been struggling with. Every important moment, I wanted to share it with you. Ji-hwan's expression didn't change, but she saw his fingers tighten slightly around his cup. I told myself I needed to be completely independent before I could be with you, Lisa continued. That I needed to be whole on my own. And I am. But I realized something. Being independent doesn't mean being alone. It means having the strength to choose who you let into your life, not needing them but wanting them. And Ji-hwan, I want you in my life. He was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure? Because once we do this, once we really try, I'm all in. That's how I am. And I need to know you're certain this is what you want, not just comfortable familiarity or gratitude or... I'm sure. She reached across the table, took his hand. I've dated before, Ethan. I know what attraction feels like, what infatuation is. This isn't that. This is something deeper. You've seen me at my absolute worst, terrified, dependent, broken down, and you never made me feel weak for it. You gave me space to heal, trusted me to find my own strength. That's not something I'll ever forget or take for granted. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. Really try. Not hiding in your apartment, not under your protection, but as equals. Two people with baggage and damage trying to build something real. Ji-hwan turned her hand over, threaded his fingers through hers. It won't be easy. My life is complicated, dangerous sometimes. There are things I can't share, places I can't take you, risks I can't eliminate. I know. And I'm not asking you to change who you are or what you do. I just want to be part of your life, however that looks. What about your life? Your goals? I won't let you sacrifice your dreams for me. I'm not. Teaching is still my priority. School comes first. But that doesn't mean there's no room for you too. She squeezed his hand. Unless you don't want this anymore. If you've moved on, if 6 months was too long. I haven't moved on. His voice was rough. I tried. Told myself you'd be better off without me, that you deserved someone normal and safe. But I couldn't stop thinking about you either. Couldn't stop wondering if you were okay, if you were happy, if you ever thought about me. Every day, Lisa admitted. Sometimes every hour. They sat there, hands clasped across the table, just looking at each other. The cafe noise faded into background. There was only this. Two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and somehow built something worth keeping. So where do we start? Ji-hwan asked finally. How about dinner? Like a real date. Not in a safe house, not hiding from anyone. Just you and me, seeing if this works in the real world. I'd like that. Friday? Friday. He smiled, rare and genuine. I should warn you, I'm terrible at normal dating. I've never actually done it. What do you mean? I mean my relationships have always been transactional or business related. I've never dated someone I actually cared about. I don't know the rules. There are no rules. We make them up as we go. Lisa stood, and he stood with her. But maybe rule 1 is honesty. Always. Even when it's hard. I can do that. And rule 2, my independence matters. I won't be controlled, even benevolently. Understood. What's rule 3? We figured that out together. He walked her to her car, old-fashioned and gentlemanly in a way that made her smile. At her door, he hesitated. Can I kiss you? He asked. Or is that moving too fast? Instead of answering, she kissed him. Different from that first kiss in his apartment, but no less electric. This was a promise, a beginning, a choice made freely. When they pulled apart, Ji-hwan rested his forehead against hers. Friday can't come fast enough. It's only 3 days. 3 very long days. She laughed, actually laughed, and realized how long it had been since she'd felt this light. Text me. Call me. We don't have to wait until Friday to talk. You sure? I don't want to be overbearing. You won't be. I'll tell you if you are. That's the point of honesty, remember. Right. Honesty. He stepped back reluctantly. Drive safe. I will. She drove home with a smile she couldn't suppress. Her phone buzzed before she'd even parked. A text from Ji-hwan, already counting the hours. She texted back, me too. Friday arrived. Ji-hwan picked her up at 7, looking devastating in dark jeans and a black button-down. He'd clearly made an effort to dress casually, which was somehow endearing. "You look beautiful," he said when she opened the door. "You look pretty good yourself." She'd chosen a simple dress, nothing too formal, but nice enough for wherever he was taking her. The restaurant was Korean, upscale, but not pretentious. Private booths, soft lighting, the smell of grilling meat and garlic. "I wanted to share something from my culture," Ji-hwan explained as they were seated. "If that's okay." "It's perfect." He ordered in Korean, comfortable and confident in a way Lisa hadn't seen before. When the food arrived, he showed her how to wrap the meat in lettuce, which combinations of banchan worked best together, how to properly mix the bibimbap. "My mother used to make this," he said, watching Lisa try the bulgogi. "Every Sunday, the whole family would gather. It was the one day my father wasn't working, the one time we felt like a normal family." "You miss it?" "Korea. Sometimes. But it's complicated." Korea represents everything I left behind, the violence, the rigid hierarchy, the past I couldn't escape. America gave me a chance to rebuild. Into a different kind of violence and hierarchy? He smiled wryly. "I said I'd change locations, not that I changed who I was. But at least here, I built it myself. It's mine. Is that important? Ownership. Control is important. When you've had everything taken from you once, you do whatever it takes to make sure it never happens again." Lisa understood that better than she would have 6 months ago. "Is that why you helped me? Because you understood losing control?" "Partly. And partly because I saw strength in you that you didn't see in yourself. I wanted to protect it until you could protect it yourself." "Mission accomplished, then." "Was it? Are you protecting yourself now?" "I'm learning to. It's a process." She set down her chopsticks. "Some days I'm completely fine. I go to class, work with the kids, come home feeling accomplished. Other days, I see someone who looks like Ethan from behind and I panic. Or I hear a voice with his cadence and my chest gets tight. Trauma isn't linear." "No, it's not." Ji-hwan reached across the table, took her hand. "But you're facing it. That takes courage. Or stubbornness. In my experience, there's not much difference." They talked through dinner, through dessert, through coffee. About everything and nothing. Lisa told him about her classes, about the 13-year-old Somali boy who'd written an essay that made her cry. Ji-hwan told her about legitimate businesses he was expanding into, about trying to transition his organization toward legal operations. "It's slow," he admitted. "You can't just flip a switch and go legitimate. Too many connections, too many people depending on the old ways. But I'm trying." "Why? What changed?" "You did. Meeting you reminded me that there are good people in the world, people worth being better for." He squeezed her hand. "I don't know if I can ever be completely clean, but I can try to minimize the damage, focus on operations that help more than they hurt. That's all anyone can do. Try to be better than they were yesterday." After dinner, they walked through Millennium Park. It was late April, finally warm enough to enjoy the outdoors. The bean reflected the city lights, tourists and locals alike taking pictures and enjoying the evening. "I used to come here," Lisa said. "When I first moved to Chicago. I felt so small standing under that sculpture, looking up at all those buildings, all those lights. Like I was nothing in this huge city. And now? Now I feel like I belong. Like I've carved out a space for myself." She leaned against the railing overlooking the lawn. "It's strange. 6 months ago, I was hiding in your apartment, terrified Ethan would find me. Now I'm standing here in public, not afraid. It feels like a different lifetime. That's because you're a different person. Stronger. More sure of yourself. Thanks to you." "No, thanks to you. I just gave you a safe place to heal. You did all the hard work." Lisa turned to face him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That night, when I jumped into your car, why didn't you just drop me at a police station? You could have washed your hands of the whole situation. Why didn't you?" Ji-hwan was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. I told you about my sister. What I didn't tell you is how bad it got. Her boyfriend, the one who isolated her, he put her in the hospital twice. Both times, she covered for him. Said she fell, said it was an accident. By the time she finally left him, she'd lost everything, her job, her friends, her sense of self. And I'd done nothing but make it worse with my anger and violence. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I saw what was happening and I reacted with rage instead of understanding. I tried to force her away from him, which only pushed her deeper into his control. I failed her when she needed me most. He looked at Lisa directly. So when you jumped into my car, terrified and desperate, I saw a chance to do it right this time. To give someone the help they needed, the way they needed it, without making it worse. Maybe it was selfish, trying to redeem myself through you. But I couldn't let another woman suffer when I had the power to stop it. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. You did stop it. Ethan's in prison. I'm free. You saved me. You saved yourself. I just held the space for you to do it. She kissed him then, there under the Chicago skyline, in front of tourists and strangers and the whole city. It felt like claiming something, like announcing to the world that she was no longer hiding, no longer afraid. When they finally pulled apart, Ji-hwan was smiling. Does this mean I'm doing okay at this whole dating thing? You're doing just fine. They walked back to his car hand in hand. At her apartment building, he walked her to the door like he had earlier. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. I have studying to do. Midterms next week. Then the day after? I work with the kids at the community center. Monday? She laughed. You're very persistent. I've waited 6 months. Now that I have you back, I'm greedy for your time. Monday works. But Ji-hwan, we need to pace ourselves. I have school, work, responsibilities. I can't drop everything to be with you. I know. I'm not good at this. At wanting someone and not having them immediately available. But I'll learn. We'll figure out a rhythm that works for both of us. Thank you for understanding. He kissed her goodnight, gentle and lingering. Text me when you're safely inside. I will. The next few months, they did find their rhythm. It wasn't always easy. Ji-hwan's world was complicated, with late-night calls and last-minute changes of plans. Lisa's schedule was packed with classes and work and her own life. But they made it work. They had date nights, sometimes fancy dinners, sometimes just takeout in her apartment while she studied and he worked on his laptop. They talked every day, long phone calls where they shared the mundane details of their lives. They navigated the complications of dating someone from a completely different world. I can't tell my study group what my boyfriend does for a living, Lisa complained one evening. They were in her apartment, her books spread across the coffee table, him reading something on his tablet. Tell them I'm an import-export. It's not technically a lie. Import-export of what, though? Various goods and services. That's so vague it's suspicious. Then tell them I'm a businessman. Also not a lie. A businessman who has armed guards and can make people's problems disappear. Ji-hwan set down his tablet. Does it bother you? What I do? Lisa thought about it honestly. Sometimes. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But I also understand that you're trying to transition toward legitimate business. And I know that whatever you do, you follow your own code. You're not random or cruel or violent for violence's sake. You're just existing in a gray area most people don't understand. Gray area is generous. What I do is illegal, dangerous, wrong by most people's standards, but not by yours. No, not by mine. I provide services people need, protect those under my care, and maintain order in places the law doesn't reach. Is that wrong? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. She moved to sit beside him. But I also know you're a good person. You helped me when you didn't have to. You're trying to be better. That has to count for something. You see the best in people. It's one of the things I love about you. The words hung in the air. It was the first time either of them had used that word. You love me? Lisa asked quietly. Ji-hwan turned to face her fully. I do. I've been in love with you for months, probably since you stood in my apartment and told me you'd rather die than go back to Ethan. But I didn't want to say it until you were ready to hear it. How do you know I'm ready? Because you look at me like I'm not a monster. Like I'm just a man. That's all I've ever wanted, to be seen as human, not just as power or danger or control. Lisa felt her heart expand. I love you too. I fought it for a long time, told myself it was just gratitude or circumstance. But it's not. It's real and it's terrifying and it's the most honest thing I've felt in years. Terrifying. Because loving someone means they can hurt you. And I've been hurt enough. I won't hurt you. Not intentionally. But you might. Unintentionally. Because your world is dangerous and I'm part of it now. Because you have enemies who might see me as leverage. Because sometimes good intentions aren't enough. Then we'll be careful. I'll protect you, not by controlling you, but by being honest about risks and letting you make informed choices. And you'll protect me by telling me when I'm being too overbearing, too controlling, too much. Deal. They sealed it with a kiss, and then another, and then they were tangled together on her couch, books forgotten. The world narrowed to just them. Later, as they lay in her bed, Lisa traced patterns on his chest. Tell me about your family. Your mother. Does she know about me? I haven't told her yet. She's traditional, conservative. The idea of me with someone who isn't Korean, it will take time for her to accept. Will she? Accept it. Eventually. My mother is stubborn, but she wants me to be happy. And you make me happy in a way nothing else has in years. What about your sister? Could we try to reach out to her? Ji-hwan stiffened slightly. I don't know if that's a good idea. But you miss her. You talk about her like there's this gaping wound. There is. But sometimes wounds are better left alone. Poking at them just makes them worse. Or sometimes they need to be cleaned out before they can heal properly. He was quiet for a long moment. I'll think about it. But no promises. Fair enough. Time passed. Lisa finished her semester with straight A's. She was promoted to head teaching assistant at the community center. Her life was full and busy and good. And through it all, Ji-hwan was there. Not overwhelming, not controlling, just present. He came to her achievements, celebrated her victories, comforted her through setbacks. He respected her boundaries while making clear how much he loved her. One evening, almost a year after the night she'd run into his car, Lisa came home to find roses on her doorstep. Not from Ji-hwan, his handwriting wasn't on the card. Her heart jumped with old fear. She called him immediately. There are flowers at my door. No name on the card. Just a note that says, you'll always be mine. Don't touch them. I'm sending Min-jae to check them out. Are you safe? Are you inside? I'm in the hallway. I was just coming home from class. Go to your neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Rodriguez, right? Stay with her until Min-jae arrives. 20 minutes later, Min-jae confirmed what Lisa had feared. They're from Ethan Crowley. Or someone acting on his behalf. He's still in prison, but he has connections. Ji-hwan arrived shortly after, his face a mask of controlled fury. How did he know where you live? This address isn't connected to you anywhere public. I don't know. Maybe he hired someone to follow me. Then we need to move you. Tonight. No. Lisa stood her ground. I'm not running again. I built a life here. I have neighbors who know me, a routine, connections. I'm not giving that up. Lisa, he's escalating again. From prison. That means he has resources, people loyal to him. You're not safe here. Then make me safe here. But I'm not hiding again. Her voice was firm. You taught me to be strong, to stand my ground. I'm doing that. Ji-hwan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Security upgrade. Cameras, better locks, someone posted outside your building at night. And you take self-defense classes. Seriously, not just basics. Agreed. And Lisa? His voice dropped. If he keeps escalating, if he becomes a real threat again, I'm handling it permanently. No arguments. She knew what he meant. Ethan in prison was still a threat. Ethan dead was not. Don't become a murderer because of me. I won't. But I'll do whatever's necessary to keep you safe. That's not negotiable. The next few weeks were tense. More flowers appeared, then letters. Ethan had somehow gotten her address, her schedule, details about her life. The letters were alternately loving and threatening. I forgive you for leaving, one said. We can start over when I get out. Another said, you'll never be free of me. You're mine until one of us dies. Ji-hwan handled each incident with cold efficiency. He had people tracking the deliveries, investigating how Ethan was getting information from inside prison. He upgraded Lisa's security until her apartment was basically a fortress. But it wasn't enough. Ethan was obsessed, had nothing but time and rage to fuel that obsession. And from behind bars, he was still finding ways to terrorize her. I want to see him, Lisa announced one evening. Ji-hwan looked up from his laptop, where he'd been reviewing security footage. Absolutely not. I need to face him. Tell him to his face that he doesn't control me anymore. That's exactly what he wants. To see you, to have power over you again, even if it's just making you come to him. Or maybe if I face him, show him I'm not afraid anymore, he'll realize I'm not worth the effort. Men like Ethan don't work that way. He'll take any contact as encouragement. Then what do I do? Just live like this forever? Waiting for the next letter, the next threat. Ji-hwan closed his laptop. There is another option. What? We get him transferred to a federal facility. Farther away, less access to outside connections. It won't stop him completely, but it will make it harder for him to reach you. Can you do that? I have contacts. It will take time and money, but yes, I can make it happen. Do it. 2 months later, Ethan was transferred to a federal prison in Colorado. The letters stopped. The flowers stopped. Lisa could breathe again. He'll be eligible for parole in 3 years, Ji-hwan told her. When that time comes, we'll deal with it. But for now, you're safe. Thank you. For everything. You don't need to thank me. Protecting you isn't a favor. It's what I do because I love you. That night, Lisa made a decision. She'd been thinking about it for weeks, ever since the letters started, and she realized how far Ji-hwan would go to keep her safe. Move in with me, she said as they lay in her bed. Ji-hwan propped himself on one elbow. What? Move in. Or let me move in with you. I don't care where. But I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you officially. Lisa, that's a big step. I know. But we've been together for almost a year. We love each other. And honestly, after everything with Ethan, I realize life's too short to wait for the perfect time. I want to be with you. You're sure? Living with me means living with my world. The late nights, the danger, the complications. I'm already living with that. At least if we're together, I won't be dealing with it alone. He kissed her, slow and deep. Okay, but we do it right. Find a place that's ours, not mine or yours. Neutral territory where we both start fresh. Deal. They found an apartment a month later. Modern, secure, with enough space for both of them and their separate lives. Lisa kept her routines, school, work at the community center, study groups. Ji-hwan kept his business meetings, late-night calls, whatever he did that she didn't ask too many questions about. But they built something together. Movie nights where they took turns picking films from their cultures. Cooking experiments where he taught her Korean dishes and she taught him Ghanaian ones. Quiet mornings with coffee and newspapers, and the comfortable silence of two people who didn't always need to fill the space with words. And somehow, against all odds, it worked. They worked. 2 years after the night Lisa ran into his car, she graduated with her teaching degree. Ji-hwan was in the audience, along with Alma, Dr. Morrison, and several of her students from the community center. When she walked across the stage, diploma in hand, she looked for him in the crowd. He was easy to spot, he always was. And he was smiling with a pride that made her chest ache. After the ceremony, he pulled her aside, away from the crowds. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You did this yourself. Built a life, achieved your dreams. With your help. With my support, maybe. But this is all you, Lisa. Never forget that." "I won't." She kissed him. "What now?" "Now? Now you teach. Change lives. Make the difference you always wanted to make. And us. Us." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "Now we make it official." Lisa's breath caught. "Ji-hwan, I know this is fast. I know we've had an unconventional relationship. But I also know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to support your dreams while you tolerate my complications. I want to build something real and lasting and good with you." He opened the box. Inside was a simple band with a single stone, elegant and understated. "Marry me, Lisa. Choose me every day the way I choose you." She was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring on her finger, and she kissed him there in the hallway of the convention center, surrounded by celebrating graduates and their families, making promises with her lips that she'd spend a lifetime keeping. "What do I tell people?" she asked later as they celebrated with dinner at the Korean restaurant where they'd had their first real date. "When they ask how we met, tell them the truth. You ran into my car to escape your past, and I helped you build a future." That's going to raise questions. Let it. We know our story. That's all that matters. And it was. They knew the truth of what they'd built together, a love forged in trauma and fear, but sustained by choice and effort, and the daily decision to be better together than they were apart. Lisa Daniel had jumped into a stranger's car to escape her past. What she'd found was a future she never could have imagined. Not perfect, nothing was. But real and honest and hers. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. As the evening drew to a close and they walked to the car, the same black sedan she'd thrown herself into 2 years ago, Lisa paused. "What is it?" Ji-hwan asked. "I was just thinking. That night changed everything. If I'd run a different direction, if you hadn't been there, if I'd made any other choice. I might not be here. But you're here. And so am I. And whatever choices brought us to this point, I'm grateful for every single one. Even the bad ones? Especially those. They taught us who we are, who we want to be." Lisa looked at the ring on her finger, at the man standing beside her, at the city lights reflecting off the car's black paint. Everything that had brought her to this moment, the fear, the pain, the desperate run through dark streets, it had all been worth it. Because she was free now. Really free. Not hiding, not running, not controlled by fear or another person's obsession. She was standing in her own strength, choosing her own path, loved by someone who respected that strength instead of trying to diminish it. She ran into his car to escape her past. But what she found was herself. And that, more than anything, was worth celebrating. If you loved Lisa and Ji-hwan's story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional, intense romance stories that will keep your heart racing. Drop a comment below telling me what you thought. Did this story capture you? What moment hit you hardest? Your engagement helps me create more content you love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.